Welcome back to the Peak State Podcast. You guys might already know who I am. My name is Billy Moat. I am on social media under the account name Finding Belief. We created this podcast just a couple weeks ago. This is is it a third episode?
Yep, number 3.
Episode number 3. And what you can expect from today's episode is kind of a brief explanation as to what you can learn from this podcast and why you should listen to it every single week. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. We're also going to briefly introduce ourselves and kind of give you a little bit of background on both of our careers, primarily this guy. And so let's just dive right into it. How about you introduce yourself and say where you played and all that fun stuff?
Lovely. I'm Greg Moat. I'm this guy's father. So we've been doing this for quite a while. So you want me to go into my playing career and all that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I played 4 years at ISU, Illinois State University, 92 to 96. Started a little over half the games my freshman year. I was platooning with another guy who was a redshirt freshman. Played second base that year. So I started probably 38, 40 games, something like that. Had a decent freshman year, I guess, especially if you compare it to like freshmen now.
Yeah.
Ended up hitting 250, a couple of home runs. But at the end of that season, like looking back on that season, I didn't love it. I had a weird sort of vibe with the whole thing. I mean, I came in almost deluded. That's how confident that I was. I mean, I honestly thought like I'm going to be the best guy there, which is it's embarrassing, right? But I came in with a ton of confidence. And I found out pretty quick that I wasn't the best guy there. And the way that I found out, it's kind of a brutal story, but I honestly thought I was going to be the best guy. We have first day workout. We get to the end of it, and they line us up down the right field line, simulating stealing second base. So Coach Jay, our pitching coach, was up there. We had to get our lead and take off. And whoever got through that invisible line of, second base extended, whoever ran through first was done with sprints for the day. And I thought, all right, watch this shit. I got absolutely dusted. I mean, dusted. And then dusted again and again and again. And it got to the point where there were only like a handful of guys left, me and a bunch of catchers. So pretty humbling, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was fast.
Yeah.
It took me getting to college to figure out that I wasn't fast, but I ended up, in spite of all that, I found my groove, had a pretty decent year. So 250, okay, not bad.
Yeah.
But that summer following my freshman year, I played with the Bloomington Bobcats, and the Bobcats were just the dirtiest, nastiest, get after you bunch that I'd ever played with at that point. And by comparison, looking back at my freshman year at ISU, like ISU was just, it was much more polished, much more uptight. It was about presenting yourself more professionally.
Yeah.
Which I found myself kind of lost there. I mean, I came from a small town where we got after you. We were more like the Bobcats in that whole, posturing to look a certain way was new to me, and it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that summer with the Bobcats, I just fell in love with getting after it, right? Dick in the dirt. I mean, this group got after you. And right then and there that summer, I decided no more. I just flipped a switch and said, all of that weird, posturing that I found myself kind of caught up in my freshman year, I said no more, absolutely no more. And I ended up having a great summer, hit 400 with 10 bombs or something like that. Yeah, we put up some numbers. And then my sophomore year, I came back to ISU, stuck with that notion of I'm just going to cock up and be an absolute dick. I mean, I probably went too far with it. I was that way everywhere I went. But came back my sophomore year, hit 340 with 6 bombs or something like that, and then pretty much continued on that path after.
Yeah.
But I had to flip the switch and understand back then, man, I had no tools.
Yeah.
I didn't know all the stuff that we're talking about now. That came later. But I did make a conscious decision that I was going to be big, bold, and go the opposite way of that weird sort of fearful vibe that I had my freshman year.
Yeah. So you pretty much went from a guy that had what you would say maybe blind confidence going in based on, being from a small town. Obviously, you were still a dude going into ISU on a full anyways, but you show up, kind of lose who you are for a little while because it was kind of like a culture shock going into ISU with guys always trying to look professional, going about it like more of like a big league kind of deal. And then you go back to playing with the Bobcats, who I played with, by the way, which we got after it too, and that was one of the best summers of my life. And then you flipped that switch, and then you ended up having the freaking doubles record, single season and career doubles, right?
Yeah, my sophomore year, I set the single season doubles record for ISU, and then I ended up with career doubles and career walks.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
And looking back on it, like I'm 5'10", 165 pounds when I came in, 160, 165.
Yeah.
And there's no way that I would have been able to produce the numbers that I did if I hadn't decided to flip that switch.
Yeah.
I mean, I just went all in on carrying myself like I was the best guy no matter what. There's no way I put up those numbers without doing that.
Yeah. Well, shoot, that's kind of what you got to do. I mean, back then, yes, I feel like for anybody that is playing the game, especially now with how competitive college baseball has become, you have to carry yourself like a mother effer at all times. And you know what? Some people might see it as, oh, okay, dude, like chill out. But no, F all that. You have to go out there and truly carry yourself like you are the guy at all times, because that is one thing that is, I think, missing in a lot of college baseball these days. A lot of guys, most guys don't believe that. It's very rare in a lot of younger guys in particular to go out there and believe and carry themselves like the man for a lot of different reasons. But for freshmen going in, if you can find a way to flip that switch just like you did after your freshman year, that's how you go from being a scared, anxious guy to a dude who everybody's scared shitless of on that field.
Yeah, there's immense power in that.
Yeah.
And in fairness, the world of baseball was much, much bigger when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know who else was good. I didn't know who else in my class was a guy unless I played with them or against them.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media. We didn't have tweets saying, hey, this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy all threw 95 from shortstop at an event this weekend.
Yeah.
So it was easier for me. It was easier for my generation. But I'm telling you, it's more necessary now than it was back then because it's hyper competitive.
Yeah.
There are so many guys who are so much further along, more advanced, not just physically, which, yes, your group is way, way, way ahead of where we were physically. In fact, when I was coaching at U-High, that year that Hardman and Matheson and Sauser and those guys, when they were seniors and Bubba was a junior, in our team photo, that was a bigger team than my ISU team.
Really?
And I am not joking.
Wow.
Just everybody is bigger, faster, stronger. But along with that, guys know how to use their bodies now because of places like Kay's Academy and Josh Cowton. There weren't guys like that back then.
Yeah.
Not with that level of knowledge. So now the ability to flip the switch and cock up, you have to have that now in order to be effective. And what was so cool when I knew that I was on the right path is I made that decision. And I mean, I went overboard with it, right? Cocking up, carrying myself like I was the best. But that happened to be my sophomore year was Casey Fisk's senior year. And his dad had just retired, Carlton Fisk, from the White Sox. So he was in the dugout every day, full-time volunteer assistant. And I noticed real quickly that Carlton was much more like I was with that flipping the switch and carrying yourself than he was the other way. Not that polished, pretentious thing. He had no tolerance for that bullshit. He was about getting after you. So I knew I was on the right path, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, and that's why you guys ended up winning the conference tournament and getting a bid and going to the regional, right?
Yeah. In 94, we won the Missouri Valley Conference tournament in Wichita. We beat Wichita, and we never beat Wichita.
Weren't they huge back then?
Dude, and they were so loaded.
Yeah.
Their Friday night guy, 95 to 98, with just an absolute hammer of a slider, and everybody back then threw splitties. Yeah. So all of their guys, except for they had a couple left-handers, all of their guys were 6'5" or taller. They all threw mid-90s. Their closer was actually Jamie Bluma. He was, 6 foot, but threw, 94 to 97, and just an absolute bulldog. I mean, the way that guy carried himself. But yeah, Witch was loaded. So we ended up winning the conference tournament. Carlton Fisk was a huge factor in that.
Yeah.
He got our offense. Instead of worrying about how good Wichita's arms or anybody else's arms were, we were coming after you. Like, guys just went from Matt Gaynor, for example, who ended up being our 4-hole hitter that year. The year before, he hit 091, then turned around the next year and hit like 380 with 14 jacks.
Gosh.
That's Carlton Fisk. That's the Carlton Fisk impact. And it wasn't just him. It wasn't just me. It was everybody. He had us attacking. He had us getting cocked up, get excited about driving a fastball, stick your face on it. That's where I got dick in the dirt baseball. He was all about just getting after you.
And it's amazing what a coaching staff like that, who builds you up and instills belief and confidence and wants you to shift your mentality from just being okay and surviving to shoving it up someone's ass. It's amazing what that does for a guy's, belief and his overall ability on the field. Sounds like Gaynor just was a different human being that next year.
Totally different.
Yeah.
He was a project, an individual project. And he didn't retool his hack. They didn't sit around and break down a bunch of video. It was all about going on the offense when you're on offense.
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about, 3 pitches and being on time for none, we got excited about fastball and being on time for that. He didn't mess with a single guy's hack. It was 100% getting guys to buy in to their own belief, getting guys to believe in themselves, carry themselves in that attack mindset, the same stuff we're talking about here, cocking up and getting after you.
Yeah, which is why we have started this podcast, right? Because I would give $1 million if every college baseball coach had the mentality, in particular, hitting guys had the mentality and philosophy that Carlton Fisk had with you guys. But unfortunately, that is a big reason why we made this podcast, was because a lot of coaches don't do that. In fact, they go the other way sometimes.
Yeah, and in fairness, I mean, we had 35 guys. Now guys have programs are carrying 60 guys, 65 guys in the fall.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's tougher, right? Getting through that many guys. But to me, you got guys on campus, build them up. You don't know what you got until that kid is comfortable and he believes in himself. Okay, now you can evaluate. And some kids aren't even getting a week to get comfortable before they get sorted out, and that coach is, they don't physically make them go over there, but mentally, that kid, unless he does something nuts, he's sorted out. And to me, that's dog shit.
Oh, I've seen it firsthand, over and over again. It's absolutely infuriating, and these guys don't know that going in. A lot of guys don't know that, oh, well, I'm on a 50% Scully here, so, I'm nervous right now, but they can't cut me because I have a 50% scholarship. No, that's not how that works. They can force you out. They can, unfortunately, a lot of them try to make your life hell to get you to leave on your own accord so they have less paperwork. I've literally heard coaches say that. Oh, I don't want to mess with the paperwork, so let's just
get him to quit.
Yeah, just tear this dude down and get him to bounce out at break. It's a crock of shit, and I'm tired of it.
That's chicken shit.
Oh, it's cowardice. Absolutely.
You go after a guy, try to convince him that he's the greatest thing ever and he's going to change your program, and then you watch him hit simulated 95 off of a machine and get blown up for whatever 2 days worth of BP, and then you write him off. And you tell the older guys, to start chirping him to run him out of there. To me, that's absolute chicken shit.
And you know what? Like I said, most guys do not know that going in. But if they did know that going in, like, hey, you might get chirped, you might get written off, that could give them everything they need to go in there and not be completely blindsided and rattled by it and let themselves spiral. Now they know, okay, if I just go in there cocked up from day one, even if I don't have that inner, belief right now, if I can go out there cocked up and carry myself like I am that guy, that confidence is going to come. And I can make a splash from day one. Now, we want to make it clear, we're not saying that all college coaches are bad, because they're not.
No.
And they're freaking human beings. So, and I mean, I spent a brief time coaching college baseball. So did you. Like, we know what it's like. It's a grind. And with having more guys now, it makes it even more difficult for them, because a lot of hitting coaches don't really have a ton of control over that, But if we can give them the tools to know what they are getting themselves into, that could be all the difference between a guy bouncing out or, hanging his cleats up early. So,
well, and it's also the difference between being miserable and having fun.
That's most important.
It's a game.
Yeah.
Right? And it is absolutely miserable to get chased out of a program. And you just said it. By no means are we suggesting that this is everybody, because it's not.
Yep.
Because Bubba's got a good one. That coaching staff, they get it. Mm-hmm. There are guys out there who dig in. They want to understand your language, the cues that you need to feel in order to get right. And if you happen to get one of those guys, love on that guy.
No doubt.
Because you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say those guys are in the minority, but most of them fall somewhere in between.
Yeah.
We gave you the extreme version of the guy, that guy, and there are some of those out there, but the rest are going to fall somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And if you're going in there expecting a bunch of time to get comfortable, and if you go in there needing the guy to help you find belief, then you're in trouble. And that's why we want to be that resource. And we're not making money doing this. This is costing us money.
Yeah.
But we're so passionate about it because we know how dark of a place it is to find yourself with a guy with a program that's loaded with dudes, with a coaching staff who comes across as indifferent, and you can't seem to find it, and you can't get comfortable. And if you leave there without showing those guys who you are, that's when the regret kicks in, man. That's tough.
It hurts.
You got to avoid that.
Yeah. I mean, I went through it firsthand.
Yeah.
At her junior year at Creighton. I went in there thinking, I was a high Scully guy, thinking I was going to be the man. Physical, 21 years old, starting to find, some confidence again after having a really hot summer in the prospect league. And then I just get my balls kicked in from week one. Hey, lose the weight, change your hack, change the way you do the infield.
Change your arm slot.
Change your arm slot. Left there 25 to 28 pounds lighter, bags under my eyes, no sleep, and a UCL problem.
Well, that's because the mindset there was, in order to be fast, in order to be twitchy, you have to lose weight. You can't
skinny,
which is nuts.
Yeah, it did.
That was the opposite for you.
Yeah, I had to be big.
Yeah, when you put on 30 pounds of muscle, you went from a 7'6" as a sophomore in high school to a 6'9".
Yeah.
By putting on weight, not by losing it.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. One thing that I harped on in my videos when I was trying to help guys navigate how to choose the right program for them, which is another thing we are going to be talking about a lot on this podcast, is make sure that you get the phone numbers of the older guys who play a lot in that program and hope that they can give you a straight answer on how things go down. And unfortunately, those guys I talked to, I asked all the right questions. I did my homework, but they were too afraid and they bullshitted me. Now, yes, all that happened, but I don't want to paint myself as some freaking victim here because I let myself get bad. I let myself get bad for 2 years. And you know what? Yes and no, but I let myself get bad and I let all that stuff dictate how I felt about myself as a player. And I got dark and I stayed there way longer than I should have, which is why I'm so motivated and why we are doing this, because I learned towards the end, it doesn't matter what that dude is saying in the dugout. It doesn't matter if he doesn't like the way you field or doesn't like the way your hack looks. If you can go out there cocked up and confident and lock in on that ball, you will have the results you need, and he's going to leave you the hell alone.
Yeah, if you can find that, if you can find peak state, right, which is what we talk about, get cocked up, then if something needs adjusting, then you know where you're at. You've got a true sense, because a guy's hack, there's always something physically wrong with it if he's not cocked up and in that place where he's on fire.
Yep.
So even if you don't feel confident, even if you are unsure, that's when you've got to cock up even more.
Mm-hmm.
You start feeling a little doubt creeping in, you got to put a stop to that quick. Cock up, carry yourself as though you were the absolute man. That's when you need that the most.
That is one thing that a lot of players do not understand, is when they feel that self-doubt kicking in, that anxious feeling, heartbeat out of control, breath out of control, they think, oh my gosh, like I'm a prisoner in my own mind and I'm stuck there, I'm toast. No, you're not. You are not. And you've said it 3 or 4 times already in this episode, making a conscious decision. Like, you can do that about anything in your life, especially on the field. You can throw a ball across the infield and, sail it, guy scores. You can sit there and say to yourself, waiting for that next pitch, hit me another one, dude. Watch this. Hit me another one. And that is literally all the difference right there, because we talked about it sometimes in videos, and we're going to dive into it. Your brain's going to follow your body, right? I mean, that's one thing I've talked about multiple times, but guys don't seem to understand that.
No, guys are waiting for the outcomes to make them confident.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're waiting for the outcomes, that's going to be real tough as a freshman, because immediately you're going to jump in and get machine-fed velo over and over and over, or you're going to get some sort of short box,
quick pitch.
Quick pitch, no, very little time in between reps, and it's going to be very difficult to stand out in that situation. I'm not saying don't expect to stand out, but it's going to be tough. You've got to be able to find certainty, which confidence, on your own. And confidence is a habit. It's a skill. It's a skill we acquire. You're not just a genetic lotto winner that I was just born with confidence. Mm-hmm. It's about directing and controlling your focus, using your physiology to cock up. That's a skill. We can all do it. So if you find yourself spiraling down because a coach just absolutely lit you up in front of everybody, you don't have to sit and bathe in all of that bullshit.
Nope.
That's a choice.
No
Instead,
doubt.
make the choice to go the other way. Mm-hmm. Cock up, get after it, go from there.
Yep.
But it can be developed.
No doubt. And that's funny, because as I was looking back on my own college baseball career, I stopped playing in the spring of 2022 due to, getting hurt again for the 3rd time with my spine. But it's easy to look back on my career and do 2 things. One, think that I was better than I was sometimes, which I think a lot of guys do, especially parents of kids. They like to
And you
do
get
that.
better the older you get.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Joyful.
Yeah.
But 2, if you look back and realize that you let that shit eat you up and you played a victim in any circumstance in your career, like you said, that's when that regret kicks in, and it can break bad really fast, which guys don't think that far ahead. And then they get chewed out. They've got 4:45 conditioning on a Saturday morning. They're tired. They got homework. They're getting eaten alive by the freaking velo machine. And they're like, oh man, like this sucks. Like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening? But if you could flip that switch and be like, all right, everybody's going to be tired. Everybody's going to be dragging ass. Everybody is going through the same thing I'm going through, and they're probably going to go out there with no energy and be filled with just all these negative thoughts. But what if I can be the guy that goes out there, that brings the energy to everybody around me and goes out there and tries to shove it up someone's ass? I mean, that is the key to having a very long and successful and fulfilling career, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's ultimately what mental toughness is. Everybody says be tough mentally. Okay, but very few people ever tell you how.
Mm-hmm.
Mental toughness essentially is the ability, when things aren't going well, to go quiet, right? Find certainty, direct and control your thoughts, cock up, and expect a good result, even when that result hasn't been great lately. That's what mental toughness is. It's not beating the chest, Johnny Hard Guy.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't it. That's not what mental toughness is.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be able to take these filters that we're given you, be mindful of them when you need it, because otherwise, I mean, it's so easy, right? We hear mindset content. We stumble across it on social, and we're like, we listen to it, and we're like, oh yeah, I already knew that. Mm-hmm. I knew that. Okay, but is that readily available when you need it? And the more you listen, the more you plug in, the more you consume. It's like good stuff in, good stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
The more you do all that, the more readily available that is in the moment, so that you're making adjustments to your focus and your physiology. Like, instead of going game to game, you're going pitch to pitch.
That's so good, dude. Yep.
Right? Pitch to pitch.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing with that. I've had players shoot me a couple messages recently, just this week, saying, which they all mentioned cocked up in the message, which means that they watched it, which is so freaking gold, dude. It fired me up so much. But they're like, okay, so this all makes sense. I want to go out there cocked up, right? But I'm having a hard time being cocked up at all times at practice or on the field. Like, sometimes I find myself, 2 or 3 innings in, and I'm like, oh shit, And they're like, how do I stay there at all times? And I responded with, be aware of it at all times. But keep in mind, we're also, human beings. And you have to lock in on that ball. Sometimes you go in the dugout and you might lose it. Like, nobody's going to maintain focus on that one thing for 3 hours straight for a 9-inning game. It's just not possible. Our brains can't comprehend more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, and that's when using your physiology, using your body comes in clutch, really. Because if you develop the habit of constantly carrying yourself as though you are cocked up, that's a huge advantage. Then those gaps between becoming mindful of it, right? Because there's nothing worse than going through 9 holes of golf. You get to the turn and you're like, oh my God, I did not cock up once.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just let myself play the worst 9 holes. I feel like a complete gut midget because I didn't think to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get in the habit of carrying yourself like a dude at all times, it's way more readily available because our mind follows our body. So if we're constantly carrying ourselves, we're cocked up, like we're an absolute dude, then that thought is just right there. Instead of it being out there, it's like it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So use your body.
Yep.
Make that an automatic.
Yep. We are going to be diving into that every single week because I am sick and tired of looking on freaking social media and guys are saying, be mentally tough, be mentally strong. I mean, if you make a mistake, move on. Errors happen. If you hit 300, then you're going to be a big leaguer. You know what I'm saying? All that
You
stuff.
fail 7 out of 10 times.
Exactly. And okay. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But we're going to dive in and give you the actual tools you can use in the moment that you can grab pitch by pitch and be like, okay, here we go. It's amazing what that did for me as a player when I had no belief. And then when I flipped that switch during that summer of 2020 and we were facing good arms, I literally used to go to the field sick to my stomach every single day, because I was so nervous. I freaking had bubble guts, man. I was nervous, and I'm like, man, this ain't fun. But I stayed there. And then that summer, I would literally look at my phone every minute and a half, counting down until that freaking game started. Not because I was dreading it, but because I couldn't wait to freaking abuse people and go out there and feel that ball just mashing off that barrel and not showing guys up, but just going out there and dominating. And that's because I found these tools and I made them readily available right there, pitch by pitch, and I went out there cocked up at all times. And that's what we're going to help these guys do.
Yeah, it's about developing those filters. And the more any of us are exposed to them, the more likely they are to become filters that we use day to day, pitch to pitch. But there are going to be moments where you have to remind yourself. You forget momentarily, right? We're human beings, and it's tough because guess what? Everything that's worthwhile is not easy. Nothing that's of any sort of significance is ever easy for us to acquire. But the more we dig in, the more I just remembered. I need to cock up. I need to use my physiology. I need to direct my focus. We get a little bit better. And then we get a little bit better. But we have to keep feeding those messages to our brain.
One way that I think has improved that concept to me of being aware of my state at all times is I started writing every single night, no matter what. I started back, it was a couple years ago, but I really dove into it and fully committed to it the end of last year. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write down all my thoughts after every single day. Things I did well, things I got to improve on, things I'm grateful for, all that stuff. And now the gratitude journal, guys, kind of like, oh, okay, dude. But it's amazing what that does, feeding your subconscious good things, good thoughts, good outcomes that have already happened, and what that does for you. But I've learned that no matter what, even when I was tired, I would write in that journal, during this game, I'm going to freaking mash. I'm going to go 2 for 3. I would get very specific with it, and I would see that stuff over and over and over again, and then it became a habit. And now I'm not playing anymore. But when my state breaks bad, during any point of the day, I'm writing that down at night. And then now it's become such a habit to where I am so aware of what's going on in here and all around me at all times because I've been writing in a damn journal.
Yeah, there's power in that. My brother, who was 6 years ahead of me in school, 6 years older, he hit 603 his senior year. 603 in the Big 12 conference, Big 12 high school conference. There were a lot of good teams there. And I remember watching him play. Even the outs he made were just absolute piss missiles at somebody. Every day before the game, before he left for school, he'd write out exactly what he was going to do for the day.
Really?
Every single day.
I didn't know that.
He would write it out. Yeah. And he ended up hitting 603.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, he would sit there and think about it, see it in his mind, see it over and over and over. He was so far ahead. I mean, that is what it's all about.
Yep.
Commit to an outcome, see it over and over and over to a point where it's a certainty. Yep. It's already done in your mind. And then our subconscious just goes out and produces it. It makes it sound real simple, but he was way ahead of the game.
Yeah. And the topic of visualization has come up in sports a lot recently, especially in baseball. I even heard it when I was playing in 2017. You want to visualize what you want. But what a lot of guys miss with that is they see the outcome, so they picture in their head for 10 seconds, yeah, okay, I'm going to barrel one in the right center gap here, and then they do it for 5 seconds, and then they go in there and they do whatever they got to do. But attaching emotion to that, the emotion as if it has already happened, is the key that 99% of people do not use when practicing visualization.
Yeah, visualization this is the outcome that I'm absolutely committed to. It's a done deal. It's about helping us create certainty, absolute belief, so that when we step into the box, we're cocked up because we know what we're going to do. Now that sounds silly, right? We don't know if we're going to get anything to hit.
Right.
But every time we pick up that foot, we got to pick it up like an MFer.
Yep.
Because we're totally certain. It's better than pick it up going, oh no, oh no. You talked about coming from a place of gratitude, right? It's about having an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset.
Yep.
If you're one of those guys that goes 1 for 4 and can't find gratitude over that one piss missile that you caught up, or that barrel that the right fielder made a diving catch on, and instead you sit there and replay those 3 poor at-bats, you're going to have a short career.
Mm-hmm.
Visualize what you want to a point where you become certain. And if you don't have recent outcomes that are good enough for you to visualize, then go back further, however much further you got to go.
Yep.
And if you can't find one back there, create a new one, a fictional one. But you got to see it over and over and over to where you're certain.
Yep.
That's what visualization, that's when visualization becomes a powerful tool that actually shapes our subconscious.
That's so good, dude.
Yeah.
And I've made I think I've made probably 3 or 4 videos on that in the last 6 months. And, people are starting to steal it, which is awesome. Gosh, but it doesn't matter. Guys are hearing it, whatever. But when guys are saying, hey, I've gotten so many messages from guys saying, hey, I've been trying to visualize this, visualize that, and it's not working. It's not working. It's a habit. Like you said, it's something that takes time. If you can get up in the morning and instead of looking at your freaking phone, going on TikTok, unless you're watching my videos, and go ahead and get up and, whatever. But if you can sit there and write stuff out, go for a walk, sit outside and visualize exactly what's going to happen in your career or in that game that day, and you do it over and over and over again, you're going to look back 6 months down the road and be like, oh shit, like I'm that guy now. I'm that guy. And
Yeah.
it's all about doing it when you don't want to do it.
Yeah, and most guys, we're already visualizing.
Yep.
But we're not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And too many guys are sitting around replaying, searching for feels, for answers of why they're popping up, why they're getting carved. So as they sit there and they replay that in their minds, searching for answers, they're visualizing failing over and over. They keep seeing it over and over and over and over and over.
Yep.
Guess what? That's how 0 for 4 becomes 1 for 30.
Yep.
By seeing that over and over and over. So we're not just visualizing when we sit down and decide, okay, now I'm visualizing. Most of us are doing it way more often than we even know.
Yep.
So we've got to be very, very mindful of the lens we're looking through and the tape that's running, the reel that's running in our minds.
Yep. I would literally sit, and I started this at Southeastern. I would sit in my car and I would have videos because I'd have all my teammates video everything, and I'd do it for them. That culture was amazing. The team was freaking amazing. But I would sit there and I'd literally watch barrels. I would literally delete the videos of me not swinging it well. I would delete them off my phone completely because at that point I knew my hack. I knew how I moved. I knew what I needed to do to get right, and I owned those cues. But I would sit in my truck and watch those over and over and over again before I got to the field. And it's amazing what that did for me. I went out there thinking, okay, I'm going to recreate these so I could have more freaking videos to watch later on. That's literally what I was thinking. And that's why I went out there and had a lot of success in the fall and when I had a brief stint before I got hurt, because I was seeing that, and watching videos in your truck or in your car or wherever you're at, I think is an incredible, powerful tool if you are looking for evidence to picture good outcomes on the field in the future.
Well, Roger Bannister in the 4-minute mile is, I think, maybe the best example of that. before Roger Bannister came along, nobody had broke the 4-minute mile. They thought it was impossible. They had done everything. They had they used the chase method where the runners were chasing somebody. They had somebody chasing the runners, somebody behind you. But Roger Bannister comes along and he does it. And the way he does it is up here. He sees it in his mind over and over and over. Because think about how powerful that belief is that the human body cannot produce a 4-minute mile. It's just not possible. Mm-hmm. He saw it in his mind over and over and over to a point with emotion, with total belief, to where it was already done.
Yep.
He had so much certainty. Then he goes out, runs a 4-minute mile because he had already done it. He was certain. And then within I forget the numbers.
8 months.
Within 8 months, how many guys?
4.
4 guys
had broken.
So there's immense power in this.
Yeah.
This is how we ratchet up the belief, by getting those results in our mind over and over and over with emotion until we become absolutely certain about it.
Yep. And what's funny is they had said, all the scientists and researchers and experts said that it had to be like 70 some degrees with a slight wind at your back with super solid like ground conditions. And he went out there when it was cold, windy, and a little bit soft, and he goes out there and beats it. And then all of a sudden that barrier's broken. Oh, okay. And now you see that happening a lot. Not like we could do that, but yeah, man, it's an incredibly powerful tool that players need to have no matter what level they're at.
They say that human beings, we use 10% of our brains. Mm-hmm. This is how we ratchet that number up.
Yep.
We're capable of so much more, but we allow external factors to put limitations on what we can and can't do. But we're capable of a lot more. We just got to see them in advance.
That was gold.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, shoot. If you guys have any questions, anything that you want us to talk about on this podcast, comment on the video on YouTube, and we will get to it. Expect videos left and right, man. We're super excited. We're going to keep diving into this and giving you guys the tools you need to go out there and play with absolute fire and certainty on that field, no matter what the hell is going on around you or what kind of coaching staff you have or what your teammates are saying or what your parents are saying. It doesn't matter. So, again, thank you for watching episode 3. This will be up really shortly. And good luck to you guys that are on campus. So, all right. Thanks, guys.